Like, the cliches, of course, it's the most difficult session to do post-lunch, so I don't know where people go. Where do people go, you think? Where do you go? Meetings, I guess. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah, I mean, maybe some people are, okay, let's be fair to them. Maybe some people have, are more interested in the sessions, some sessions, particular sessions, so they go there. Some people may have some meetings in the office. Some people have some dates, we don't know, blind dates maybe. But I always keep on thinking, how do you actually choose a gift if you're going on a blind date? How do you do that? Because you don't know the person. I was thinking about it while I was coming here, and this kind of resonates with the way I think co-working centers are designed, because you end up designing stuff for people who you have never met. You can't even imagine who's going to be the occupier of the space and all of that. So I come from a background of workplace strategy, and workplace strategy is based on the fact that you have to know your end user inherently. What are his passions? What does it drive? What drives him, and all of that. So in that sense, for me, this sounds amazing. These are all kind of Houdinis, magicians. How do they design spaces and craft spaces for people who they have actually never met? So with that, the introductions have been done. I just let them introduce themselves. I'll come straight to Manish. And Manish, as you know, he's with the Executive Center. I think long before we heard all the other fancy names today, they were there. And they've actually been there. They're killing it. So what's your secret sauce, Manish? I mean, how do you do this? What is one thing which you do differently? One thing where, you're able to actually craft these wonderful spaces for people you've never met.
Thank you, Partha. Thank you, BW, for giving this opportunity to speak over here. One secret sauce, TEC is in the business for last 29 years. We are not fly-by company. We're not a startup company. We have survived 2 recessions and still going strong with a CAGR of over 28% year-on-year growth. We at TEC, our office is designed which is welcoming, with a premium look and feel and unmatched service standards. I think this is the main USP which differentiates us from rest of the player, which I think personally. Our spaces are designed to foster collaborations. Collaborations right now is the key to innovations and creativity. And that's what makes co-working space so relevant in the market right now. Yes, we do have a right mix of private spaces, focus spaces, but yeah, collab zone is something which a lot of companies are incorporating and is rightly incorporated in TEC layouts as well. Another most important thing which we incorporate in providing comfortable furniture, which is easy on body. I think if we focus on the point here is well-being of the employee, which I think again leads to better productivity. So I think this is the secret. I would not say secret, but yeah, there's something which we believe we have done. We have been doing this over the years. We have evolved and set a benchmark in the industry to be a premium and lead by example.
I sense being in the market for 27 years also, has given you enough data for you to understand who your potential customers are, and that, I guess, are your main data sets which you thrive on, right? To actually craft spaces for what people will actually like in your offices. Okay, great. Now, if you actually look at the design side, if I go to Swaviman, he's from Space Matrix, and I know you guys design a lot of good offices for large organizations. But for me, from what I hear, co-working or flex spaces is a different ballgame altogether, in the sense like you have to design for a diverse set of individuals, diverse set of organizations, and you don't really know who's coming to your spaces. At the same time, you also have to design for a lot more flexibility, I believe, than a traditional office setup. From designing an office for one organization to designing for co-working centers, can you highlight one or two serious differences?
Sure. So it's been about 15 years for me in industry, and I've with my little experience and understanding of co-working, I would say it's no more as simpler as it used to be 15 years back. I mean, very simpler requisites, very simpler requirements. It was much more easier those days. And now, since, I mean, from a decade, I think it's kind of a VUCA kind of a scenario, I would say. Very volatile because of the business changes, uncertain, always, mostly the needs changes, very ambiguous, always challenging for designers, very complex it is getting. And pretty recent example is now the model is changing to clients asking for kind of a elevated space, which is basically they can stay in their own bubble, retain their own identity, yet they want to be very much connected to the whole jive and vibe of a connected community culture kind of a space and all the commonalities. So that's something which is coming up. So these were not certain things which were passed in those days. These are few requirements which keeps changing. I would also mention that, since we're talking about diversity, I mean, when we're talking about co-working, there are, starting from young companies who are still looking for their own stride, there are established companies who are, aiming for the next level, there are smaller entrepreneurs coming up with new ventures, there are, bigger enterprises coming in. So diverse needs, diverse work patterns, various perceptions. It's like an unprecedented kind of a diversity which we have to deal with. And so that is exactly where the vantage point is and the design challenge starts. The whole conception starts of thinking and how do we cater to that. So there's no one solution to problem. There are several. We all may be catering to it in different way. But yeah, what we have started doing is egalitarian approach, which is basically somewhere finding the oneness. Even if there are various bubbles, can we have one identity, one seamless universal language, which is harmoniously blending all these bubbles together? So that's something which we are looking forward to. And also, the value drivers for all such spaces are very gradually changing. When it comes to, like, 15 years back, 10 years back, it used to be different. It's no more about how many benches, how many workstations, how many collaboration areas, how many meeting rooms, or efficiency, productivity. It's not just that. Rather, it has gone slightly more intangible with time, where the value drivers are more, fueling up, the frictionless journey in these spaces, which have got different destinations or micro destinations with different identities. So yeah, that's something which is interesting, and many of us probably are, aiming at different solutions, where neuro aesthetics is something which is taking a center stage. And F&B is a major aspect which comes to, when it comes to enriching the social quotient of co-working spaces. Can we have active strategies to include F&B into such spaces? Wellness aspects coming into play. Yeah, and these are a couple of solutions which, to elaborate, it's never ending, but I'm just pointing out few of the solutions which we are.
And I'll pick up one of those, which is the word called diversity,
Sure.
which is so big these days. DNI, which has become such a big term
Absolutely.
nowadays. But, these guys, they've been doing it for ages now, actually. We've just, got to know about it yesterday. The thing is, when we do workplace strategy, and you guys, I know how you do it, you probably have different personas within an organization that you identify. And based on the needs and aspirations of those personas, you try and create offices which kind of delights people.
Absolutely.
I actually have a question for Prosenjit. You're dealing with probably 10, 20 different personas who you've never met, who you have no clue. And it's all about, when I meet somebody at the bar and he says, hey, have you seen my office? You should come and see. I mean, that's what we crave for all the time. How do you create this wow effect or delight effect? How do you define that delight effect? And is there something which you actually deliberately, purposefully, intentionally do to get that?
Thank you, Partho. I think it's a beautiful concept, like intentional delight. It's probably the most difficult thing in the world to do, especially with spaces.
You have to design intentionally, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think the way co-working has evolved is there's been a lot of anecdotal data, right? Because we've been in the system for the last 4-5 years. We know how standard offices are designed, and you kind of mash up those metrics to arrive at the least common denominator. Let's put it that way. That's how we used to design, perhaps, and picking up from what Swaviman was also saying. I think there's a lot of data that has come in. There's a lot of data that we also employ in understanding how space is working real time. So that's one aspect of us just getting it right in terms of the programming. I think delight is a little more intangible, and it works on two levels from what we see. One of them is service. I think just layering on a phenomenal hospitality at different scales within the space, right? For example, for us, a lot of our centers are within campuses, right? So our kind of community and engagement teams are able to take the same experience from the campus to your desk. So essentially, it starts from when you enter the campus in your car and then ends when you're at your desk. And not ends, well, it just kind of continues. So I think that's a very important aspect of, benchmarking delight or service. The other things are obviously all design strategies, right? We've all, been speaking about them. There's biophilia, there's the enabling of technology. All our spaces have to be technologically enabled. We are essentially trying to recreate a Picasso using Lego blocks, if I can, kind of call it like that. Because that's all we have. Our kit of parts are those space types. And they have to merge, mix, and somehow make that picture. But I think in terms of delight, there are a couple of things we've seen works. One secret sauce that at least we are beginning to realize recently is art. Art is taking our spaces to the next level, not just by filling up a dead corner as a backdrop to furniture, but I think it's allowing us to have a much more deeper social dialogue at the center. So we're talking about environmental sustainability, but I think at a social sustainability level, we have a lot of kind of responsibility, and we're doing that through art, and we've seen that it kind of elevates that experience and that space for us. So I think to summarize, yes, it's a little bit of shooting in the dark, but I think data is really helping us. We are able to now arrive at much more efficient mixes. Now this is sales data, this is space usage data. So we know that certain regions require certain mixes, right? So for example, certain regions definitely need cabins and meeting rooms in all the studios that you do, right? That's data. But I think at the center, at the heart of it, people want to belong. So I'll take from what Swaviman said, that is there a common language that binds all the bubbles? I think making that is the secret to delight. If we can give them the space, the service, and the aspiration to kind of come together and thrive, that's delight in a bottle.
So many interesting things. Art is a concept. Art is a secret sauce. And I actually feel like going out of syllabus now. There's so many, rabbit out of the magician's hats which are emerging, but I'll stick with the syllabus. And a couple of things that both of you actually said. You spoke about creating a common identity. I'll come to Aparna on that, if you don't mind. So Aparna, as you know, she's from Gensler, and when you're dealing with an organization, one single organization, it's set that the office has to reflect the brand's ideology, its culture, its values, all of that. When it comes to all these things that you heard of just now, what is this identity that you try to create? Is it the co-working center's identity? We heard in the previous session that each one will develop their niche. Is it the co-working's identity that you're trying to reflect through the design? Is it a different categories, potential categories of people who will reside within that? Or is it a very generic one which will kind of, everyone will find it adaptable? What drives you?
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me? Yes. So essentially, it boils down, like if you really look at it, what is brand, right? Brand is something that helps people identify themselves, either with an organization, a group, or a community, right? So the need for a brand is to establish an identity. And when you look at the users in a co-working space, right, they may be different organizations in actually very diverse businesses, and also coming from very, very different backgrounds, like, you know, the panelists have just mentioned. But what they don't have is they don't have a sense of community, because in their journey they may be yet too small. Maybe they don't have the bandwidth to, you know, have an office space of their own. But everyone wants community. Everyone wants to belong, right? So I think as a co-working center or a co-working brand, right, providing all those elements that unite and bring people together, you know, that is what their brand would identify with. And the culture of that place would also set apart one co-working brand from another, right? And then that culture and that experience, you know, translates into space design. But when it comes to the individual businesses, you know, they have their own brand and their own identity. And so when it comes to their own office, I think they want the freedom to be able to express who they are, and also be able to express that to their clients and their visitors as they come in. So it's kind of, you know, if you see, like you'd say, the spaces will allow them to display their brand the most, like their own, you know, office suites, and where they are hosting their clients, you know, they should be able to showcase their personality when they're there. But in the other elements like F&B, cultural events, the way the art is done, the way the common areas are done, like those things for sure, you know, having an identity for the co-working and a point of view that, you know, what differentiates one from another is how, you know, those places are successful.
Right, which is, I think it resonates quite well with what Swaviman was saying, bubble which connects with the larger community. Yeah, thanks. I'll come to Nitin. Can I? Yeah, I can see you now. Okay, so you're from one of the largest furniture brands, of course, and for years we've been hearing about things like adjustable furniture, movable furniture, because this industry that we're talking about, one is of course diversity. The other thing is of course flexibility. I mean, very, very dynamic flexibility. If you look outside of these, you know, movable partitions and adjustable desk and all of that, can you share with us one or two secrets which allows a co-working center or any office for that matter to be hyper dynamic? And the other thing, I was just talking to Prosenjit at lunch. We were talking about AI, of course. Who can miss AI these days? The other thing with AI, of course, that there's a lot of technology being used. When it comes to furniture, I often think about, I don't know if anybody's doing it, IoT. The furniture can be a piece of technology, right? Is there something you're doing in that direction, and can technology be part of what you're about to suggest?
Thank you, Partha. I will take the second one first.
Okay.
What you said about the AI, you know, probably this is the buzz everywhere. Not much touched the furniture part of it, or I would say the product per se. We were talking, but I, as a consultant, would like to highlight few things. You know, probably we have seen many changes that has already been happening. Something which is a pre-programmed desk. If you're sitting for too long, that has been programmed to make you alert with an alarm. Okay, you need to stand up now. That's already been taking place as we speak. There have few of the sensors, you know, based where you could, you know, monitor your lightings, your HVACs, or probably even, you know, the capacity, you know, how your places have been utilized, whether this particular zone has been utilized or not. So those are all well taken care. But, you know, aligning to all the thoughts what Mr. Manish said, or Mr. Jaggi also said, you know, how we are utilizing the real estate completely. So with this, what I feel, you know, there is still a huge gap on how we are actually, you know, balancing the technology in itself with the products or with the settings. The reason being, you know, we want to be, you know, everyone want to be the monotonous that I would have this desk and I would be delivering from this desk only. So we're not allowing them any choices. The moment they do not have chances, they would not be encouraged. So we are trying to create these social spaces, collaborative spaces. But if it is, integrated with technology, if you have an option of plug and play, they will be highly motivated to change the seats. Not just monotonous on the desk. They would get up from that spaces and come to the collaborative where you could meet multiple peoples, multiple ideas get shared over there. So this is where I feel, not just AI, but even the technology part is slightly, I would say, is not been seen much of. It is just seen as I would say, relaxing spaces for nowadays. But if that comes in picture, I think even that would help us integrate furniture along with technology. And adding to this, how we could relate this towards co-working spaces. I think this is one of the dynamic platform where people can actually try this. I would not call it as an error also, but over here you could actually try it out. The reason being not just making all the spaces towards focus or privacy own, me and I own desk, but also some social spaces, also some collaborative spaces, also some learning spaces. Over there, all these applications would only help them motivate and generate the ideas. This is what end of the day we want them to come back with more ideas and more energetic with it.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot is happening out there as far as I think IoT is concerned in this industry, and also, of course, AI and things like connecting everything in this room to the internet, and then of course you're doing predictive analytics to actually predict that who's going to be eating lunch, who's not going to be eating lunch. It's gone to that level, right? What's his favorite food in the office? The food gets ordered. All of that is possible. I'd just like to come to Prosenjit because we're discussing this at over lunch also, is that a lot is being said about what is possibility. Two factors. One is IoT. The other is, of course, AI and predictive analytics. Being able to predict that I have a meeting and the meeting room gets booked automatically, and somebody gets a message on his phone that that meeting room is booked for you, and it reminds him also, all of that. IoT, I've been involved in a couple of projects where we've seen problems in the sense like due to a lack of open AIs, you can't really connect everything as it is said now. I'd like to know, if you don't mind, sharing what is actually happening there. I mean, what is being done there? There's a lot which can be done, but what's happening in terms of IoT and AI in offices, in making them more, let's say, productive?
I think operationally, IoT sensors are helping enormously, right? I mean, buildings are becoming efficient. We're using less energy. We are able to track and monitor where energy is being spent and plug that gap. I think the revolution that is happening and probably can grow much larger is actually physically changing space in itself. Right now, it's reactive for us. I mean, whenever we are getting some data, then we are reacting to it. I think the future will be that it's a closed loop and it keeps moving and changing on its own, maybe really far into the future. But I'll give you a quick example. I think we did an exercise to understand meeting room usage because I think the most common complaint that any full center has from members is that there's not enough meeting rooms. And when we looked at the data, we realized that there was a mismatch because meeting rooms were not really being booked, but they were full. So when we dug a little deeper, what we realized was that post-pandemic, right, you don't have full teams coming in. You'll have two people in the office, but they need to join a big meeting with 10 people. They'll pull themselves into a meeting room. There's not enough focus spaces. So the simple solution to that was we made our phone booths bigger to be able to take 2 or 3 people. And that freed up the meeting room inventory. So I think these decisions from data become really, really helpful. Furniture usage, right? I mean, we spend so much on loose furniture and they're relegated to a corner. We realized that in one of the centers, we had a double or a triple height staircase and we had sofas right next to them. Nobody was sitting there. So we looked at the CCTV footage. There are some wonderful plugins which allow you to actually heat map spaces just from CCTV footage. And we realized that nobody was sitting there. And I think when we dug deeper, we realized that nobody really wants to sit at the base of a staircase with people being able to see you up and down. So I think at a spatial or at a design level, it just allows us to make better decisions. We can make that, we can institutionalize that as we move forward. But I think the future is for us to be able to have a much more closed feedback loop with this system, much more dynamic. I think that's where I'd like to see it go.
Right. The other day I actually saw in somebody's office, so they had indoor plants and they had moisture sensors within that, and it actually tells you if the plant needs watering then. So in some other office, I found a very human way of doing this. They had actually gifted plants. Nowadays, you are gifted plants, right? And everyone in the office had actually adopted a potted plant, and they'd actually named them. Somebody was called Ravi, somebody was called Seema. And the moment they did this, they actually began to take care of them. It was a very simple thing. And this actually, it brings me to Aparna once again, because I know she's worked with a diverse set of clients, diverse kind of industries. To some extent, when we talk about sustainability, it is largely driven by products which are, no offense, certified green, and we try and get these green certifications. That's fine. It's good for the organization's image and all of that. But when it comes to day-to-day sustainable practices by the end users of that space, can you suggest one or two simple things that anyone can just do in their office without too much thinking?
Absolutely. I think it boils down to very simple and basic things. First and foremost, if you don't buy new, build new, right, there itself is the biggest energy savings. Like building new buildings is, 40% more carbon than if you were to reuse, right? So use things to their life, find new purpose for things that have life in them. We actually as a practice are focusing on that with our clients, especially for office, rather than do complete fit outs. We're like, hey, these chairs are in good condition. You could easily use them for 5 more years. You don't need to throw them away and buy new ones, right? So there's all of that stuff you can do during building a new office or building a new, co-working center. But then on the other hand, for operations, right, not having more lights on than you need, right? Using technology to help you monitor that, but also driving a culture where people are, not using more water than they need, not using plastic. I think these are things, like just not have plastic at events, or not have, lights on all the time. These are very, very basic things, and every little thing counts. Similarly, having public transport options for people to be able to come from, major TOD locations, that also will really help. So I think especially in our cities, and the fact that in India, we are building the size of Chicago every year in India, right? We have a huge role to play to do it sustainably, and not, kind of just build everything from scratch and waste and leave things, underutilized.
Yeah, I think the panelists from the previous panel would not like us to say stop building, but we have to keep building for different reasons. And, one of the things Swaviman also said, and I think Prosenjit also spoke about, is this whole factor of making people go, wow, okay, I really like this place. And there are a lot of things you can do to actually boost wellness and also allow people to behave sustainably on a day-to-day basis. But some of these things, I think Prosenjit also spoke about earlier, are intangible. I mean, how do you really measure delight? How do you inspire? How do you measure inspiration? And there are 2 other words which come to my mind. There was a lot of people speaking about my productivity went up during the COVID period. Creativity went up. But in my 25 years of experience, I haven't come across any consistent or reliable way to measure productivity or creativity, especially for knowledge workers. You can do it for factory workers, not for knowledge workers. And I'd like to know from Manish, I mean, you've been doing this for 25, 26 years. Space has to be productive. It has to kind of boost creativity as well. Again, is there something you do to actually boost productivity and creativity? And is there a way that you actually measure it? You must be doing something right to survive for so long.
Let me start by saying what we are doing in terms of making inspiring spaces. First, I think co-working is a blueprint of all the companies. It is resilient. It is a disruptor. Why? Because we have incorporated a design that suits to all the global companies and the startups. There's a huge change in shift in terms of the office usage. We have seen old school where the desk used to be, like a cubicles, managers used to have a private offices, but everybody now the shift is on open workspace. I think that gives kind of a team spirit, collaboration. I think that's a major boost to the new Gen Z and the millennials, which they have sense of belonging when they come to work. Our spaces are designed to foster collaborations. Most important things when we design the workspace, we also look at what Prosenjit mentioned in terms of getting natural elements, which gives a kind of a soothing or calmness in the office space, along with biophilic design. And the workspaces are designed like you have a lot of natural lights. Good lighting is very, very important because that helps the productivity of the employees working over there. Co-working in terms of design is very flexible because it understands the ever-changing and supports the demand of any any work style it can incorporate to. And measuring is something I think all the CRE heads and CFOs are struggling in terms of. That's why I think the IoT, especially in utilizing the desk is a blessing for the CRE, especially the CRE heads and the finance folks, where they can actually measure the actual usage. When we are seeing this shift from the desk to more of collab zone, definitely the finance guys always look at the ROI in terms of the more workstation. However, this IoT has helped us to utilize the desks very wisely so that I optimize the desk and create a space which is like more for the collaboration. Like instantly they can interact with the other team members, collaborate and learn and grow. Apart from that, there is a lot of change and shift. Like any employees when they come, they look at the whole gamut of amenities in the entire office space, be it a wellness center, be it a fitness center, be it a gaming zone. So I think it's a comprehensive end-to-end what an employee look, and measuring is something with IoTs and everything, which we are able to see how best the employees are at work, and which if we focus on the well-being, which we put in a lot of hard effort in terms of providing that space. I think it definitely boosts the productivity of the team members.
Right, thanks. When it comes to design of such spaces, designers, Swaviman, when designers, you design an office, you get an award, sometimes you get out. Just go and meet the client to say hello and have coffee. Not always, I know, otherwise you won't get repeat projects. But having said that, we really need to look beyond that. I know you guys do that. Otherwise, you won't get repeat projects. How do you measure? Manish spoke about measurement. Can you talk about one example where you've actually seen that you've done something different in a co-working center, or if you want to choose some other example, where there has been some matrix which has actually gone up. Maybe people were retained, maybe people stayed back, retention levels went up. Can you talk about one example?
Yeah, so I would quote a very interesting example, which is pretty recent now. Couple of floors, Dream 11, NBA coming together. So the brief was to basically, Dream 11 is again a fantasy sports platform which brings in the fanatics and the sports really close together. And the idea, the emotion which we started with is how do we bring in the commonality in various entities which are existing there. Someone is into, let's say, animatics, someone is into business analytics, the other entity is into fan code, There is a IPL, which is a different entity. So what we thought is, can we have one thread which winds it all together, interweaving, which is, let's say, how do we create a space which has which really screams out sports loud, because the people working there themselves are like, it's a high spirited environment, super creative people, they are also into analytics. It's like a high adrenaline kind of environment. So what we did is, having all the bubbles in various zones, wherever in different stratas, the transition space that we were developing, we thought, can it be like can we get inspired from a stadium, like a sports arena, where there's a bright light out there. You are entering into the space through a tunnel, which is a dark tunnel, and that's how the people would be, the actual people would be entering into the space. There's vibrant, vivacious space all around. Lot of thematic, stands, recharging pit stops. There are a lot of pavilions. There are team squad rooms, very thematically designed, and all these spaces were more on the common amenities side. People just loved it, and after our post survey, which we do, people are really proud to be there and do whatever they are doing there. That's something which is a success factor, I would say. And it's also about the happiness quotient that you see, the pep and the jive and the energy, the thrill there, which people have. That really speaks out loud about, if we talk about measuring what success is for the project.
I'm just looking at that, which is measuring our time.
I was just about to ask,
do
I have to really stop?
Yeah, so I think one thing is quite clear. I think measurement, that time's up. It's critical, which actually means that, everything has to be data driven. Otherwise, organizations will not, who wants to take a decision which is not based on an Excel sheet? Every organization does it that way, right? A lot more has to be spoken about. We're running out of time. Nitin, it's not out of sight, out of mind. You're very much there in my mind. Would you just like to add to that and close this?
Sorry, can you please?
So I was just saying that everything is about data-driven decisions, right? That's what everyone's talking about. He spoke about survey. We spoke about IoT. Would you like to make some closing remarks? I said you're not out of sight, out of mind, because I can't see. You're very much there.
So I would anyway say this. Of course, data plays a major role wherever it is. Like for us, we do research. We do research across the globe. This is what helps us invent any other product. So it actually plays a major role in every element for us also. And this is where we divine what is the current need. Like we were all mentioning about the spaces or technology or AI. So this is where it's actually like I would say a pedigree for us. It starts from there, from the research itself, and then towards coming closer towards the end product, what we see at sites. Yeah.
Happy to hear that. Happy to do that sell for us as well. That's what we do. Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks everyone. Thank you for coming back and coming back after lunch. Thank you, Bhavna, for everything.
Thank you.